The morning sun had barely broken over the tree line when the scream pierced the calm of the sleepy suburban neighborhood. It wasn't the kind of sound that came from a child throwing a tantrum or a teenager arguing with their parents. It was sharper, desperate, and raw. 16-year-old Maya Keller was standing near the park at the edge of the HOA community, surrounded by a group of kids who all shared one thing in common. Their mothers ruled the neighborhood like a private kingdom, and at the top of that hierarchy was Karen Masters, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. Her son Tanner was the loudest, the most entitled, and the cruelest. "Superman gonna fly in and save you, freak?" Tanner taunted, stepping closer until his shadow fell over Maya. He smirked as he snatched her phone from her trembling hands and threw it into the dirt, the glass shattering with a crunch. His friends, 4 other kids, all wearing smug grins and expensive sneakers, laughed and filmed her humiliation. Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but her voice came out small, shaky. "Leave me alone, Tanner. I didn't do anything to you." "Oh, you did plenty," Tanner sneered. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone last week. My mom said you don't even belong here. You're not HOA approved." The others snickered. One girl whispered, "Her dad's just some construction worker, right?" "Yeah," Tanner said, grinning wider. "Lives out by the woods. Probably building tree houses because he can't afford a real job, if only they knew." Maya's father, Ethan Keller, wasn't a construction worker. He was a retired Navy SEAL, a man who had served over 20 years in some of the toughest missions overseas. After retiring, he had wanted peace, a quiet life where he could raise his daughter without the constant noise of war. He bought the cabin at the edge of town, restored it himself, and tried to teach Maya what peace felt like. But peace doesn't survive where arrogance reigns. Tanner's group wasn't done. "You think you're tough, huh?" one of them said, pulling a length of rope from the bed of his truck. It had been used for tree climbing, but the way he held it made Maya's blood run cold. "Let's see if Superman comes when you scream." "Stop it!" Maya shouted, stepping back. The boys laughed louder. "We're just having fun. Don't you know how to take a joke?" They looped the rope over a low branch, pretending to make a swing, but Tanner's eyes told a different story. Cruel, mocking, hungry for dominance. He yanked the rope tighter, and the others moved closer, circling her like hyenas. "Let go," she cried, struggling, but one of them grabbed her wrist. The bark of the tree dug into her back. The rope brushed against her shoulder, and the laughter around her grew louder. "Come on, Maya. Don't you trust us?" Tanner jeered. "We're just showing you who runs this neighborhood." Then through her fear, Maya heard something, a sound she knew better than her own heartbeat. Footsteps, heavy, rhythmic, deliberate, cutting through the woods behind her. The laughter began to fade as the sound grew louder. Even the birds went silent. From the tree line emerged a tall figure, sweat-darkened shirt clinging to his muscular frame, eyes locked forward with the intensity of a predator. It was Ethan Keller. He had been on his morning run through the forest trail when he heard his daughter's voice. In combat, that kind of cry, that tone, meant one thing. Someone you love is in danger. His instincts kicked in before his mind even caught up. When Ethan stepped out of the woods and saw the scene, the rope, the boys, his daughter pressed against a tree, something deep inside him snapped. "Let her go." The words were low, steady, but they hit like a bullet. Every one of those boys froze. The laughter died. "Sir, this isn't what it looks like," Tanner stammered. Ethan didn't blink. He walked closer, every step controlled and precise, the way he had been trained. Slow, unrelenting, calculated. "Then tell me," he said, his voice calm but lethal, "what does it look like?" Tanner's friends glanced at each other, suddenly realizing the situation had gone far beyond a harmless prank. The man standing before them wasn't just angry. He was dangerous in a way they couldn't understand. "Put the rope down," Ethan said. His tone didn't rise, but it carried authority, the kind that demanded obedience. The boy holding the rope dropped it immediately. Ethan walked past them, his focus now entirely on Maya. She was crying, shaking so hard she could barely speak. He gently put his hands on her shoulders. "You okay, sweetheart?" She nodded weakly, but her voice broke when she tried to answer. They were, "I know," he said softly. It's over. He turned back to the boys. Sit down, he ordered. Sir, we didn't mean... I said sit. The edge in his tone sliced through the air. The boys obeyed instantly, dropping onto the grass. Even Tanner, who was used to adults cowering before his mother's influence, couldn't meet Ethan's eyes. Ethan pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed. This is Ethan Keller, he said, voice steady. I need law enforcement at the community park off West Hollow Lane. Multiple juveniles involved in assault and harassment. You can't call the cops, Tanner blurted out. My mom, she runs the HOA. You can't do this. Ethan's expression didn't change. Your mom doesn't run the law. Minutes later, the distant wail of sirens grew closer. The boys began to panic. Ethan stood like a statue, one hand protectively on Maya's shoulder, the other resting at his side. When the patrol car pulled up, the officer stepped out, taking in the scene. The rope, the crying girl, the silent boys. What happened here? The officer asked. Ethan gestured calmly. Assault attempt, harassment. Evidence is right there. Phones too. They recorded it. The officer nodded grimly and began collecting statements. Tanner tried to plead his case, insisting it was a joke, that they hadn't meant to hurt anyone. But when the officer saw the video on one of their phones, Maya crying, the rope being pulled tight, his expression hardened. You're lucky she wasn't hurt, the officer said coldly. This isn't a prank. This is a felony. Tanner's face went pale. When the patrol cars finally drove away with the boys in the back seats, Maya clung to her father. I didn't know what to do, she whispered. Ethan hugged her tightly. You did the right thing, he said quietly. You called for help, and I came. That night, the entire neighborhood was talking. The HOA mothers gathered in their manicured lawns, furious and defensive. Karen Masters, Tanner's mother, stormed up and down the street, shouting about how that ex-military man had ruined her son's life. But the whispers didn't stop, because everyone had seen it. The look in Ethan Keller's eyes, the way he moved, the way the cops listened when he spoke. This wasn't some overprotective father. This was a man who had spent years defending others, who knew exactly how to fight for what mattered. And now the HOA's little kingdom had a new name they spoke in hushed tones, the SEAL on Cabin Lane. But what Karen didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that Ethan wasn't done. Because when you come after a soldier's family, you don't just face his anger, you face his entire training. And soon the HOA would learn exactly what that meant. The next morning, the quiet calm of the neighborhood shattered again. Not from screams this time, but from rage. Karen Masters was on a warpath. She marched down the lane in her silk robe, hair twisted into a bun that somehow made her look even more severe. Her voice, shrill and sharp, carried through the street as she shouted into her phone. You listen to me, Chief. My son is not a criminal. He's a good boy. That man, that ex-military nut job, terrified them. Behind her, the morning sun reflected off her pristine white SUV, parked diagonally across Ethan Keller's driveway. It was deliberate. A message. Ethan stood on his porch, coffee mug in hand, watching her rant like a storm that didn't know where to strike. His eyes were calm, but his jaw was tight. He'd faced warlords with more reason than this woman. Maya sat on the porch steps, knees drawn up, quietly sipping her tea. She looked pale, still shaken from the previous day. But when she saw Karen's car blocking their drive, a flash of defiance crossed her face. Dad, she said softly, she's doing it on purpose. I know, Ethan replied. Bullies double down when they realize fear doesn't work anymore. Karen finally turned toward them, phone still pressed to her ear. You think you can have my son arrested and just walk away? You humiliated my family. Ethan sipped his coffee, unbothered. Your son humiliated himself, ma'am. Karen's face reddened. Don't you dare talk to me like that. I'll have the HOA board evict you. We don't need your kind here. Ethan gave a small, humorless smile. You're welcome to try. He turned to go back inside, but Karen wasn't done. She threw her phone into her purse and stomped closer. You think your little act of heroism impresses anyone? This is a community, Not a war zone. You and your daughter are nothing but trouble. Ethan stopped. Slowly he turned back. My daughter almost got lynched by your son and his friends. You're lucky I called the cops and not the coroner. Karen flinched, just slightly, but her pride was stronger than her sense. You're threatening me now. That's it. I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting tonight. We'll see how long you last here.